Today I'm joined by the great director and producer Albert Hughes. You may know him from films such as The Book of Eli, Dead Presidents, one of my favorite movies, Menace II Society. I watched like 1,000 times until I broke the VHS player. We're here to talk about his new series, The Continental, from the World of John Wick. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Is Menace II Society like 30 years old?
People have been telling me that the last few weeks. I'm like, oh my God, I'm old. I'm old now.
That means I have to be a grandpa.
I don't even. You look young. You can't be as old as me.
I'm 43.
Okay, you're young.
Yeah, that's young.
Yeah, I'm 51.
Okay. So congratulations on the new project.
Oh, thank you,
young man. Tell us how the project came about.
It was offered to me by the producers of the John Wick film series, Basil Iwanek and Erica Lee. And at the time, we were all in the midst of COVID. And you're speaking of my old projects. If you look at Dead Presidents, Menace, and a couple other things, even American Pimp, we're dealing in like inner city violence, generational trauma, all that kind of stuff. And
heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff. And I didn't realize what a stress it is, even if it's fun making it. We had a ball making Menace. We were laughing every day, right? But there's that subconscious stress going on because you're dealing in a real life drama that I just wanted to have fun. And during the time of COVID, I go, I think the audience just wants to escape. And those movies look fun. I want to have fun, so I'm going with this. I'm just going to take a chance. And it ended up being like the most fun I've ever had on a project, basically, because you're not dealing with anything that's related to real life, politics, gender, religion, and you have this space open just to play, basically.
Take our readers through the world of the Continental.
It's basically an origin story. And if you're a John Wick fan, you know that it's based on the hotel, the Continental, here in New York. It's a real building.
Is that where you're staying right now?
I was actually supposed to stay across the street from that real building. And it's a hotel, and the manager of the hotel, Ian McShane, his name is Winston, and they have a particular set of rules in the John Wick universe where assassins can stay here, but no business can be done on hotel grounds, which means no killing. And our story basically is the origins of how he got to be the manager of that hotel, because in our origin story is a guy named Cormac, who's not that great of a guy, who's running the place, and it's kind of morally bankrupt, let's put it that way. That it doesn't have a code. The John Wick films have code, and honor among thieves, honor among assassins, basically, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to get there. But what's cool about the series is I feel like you don't have to know the John Wick world to kind of get into it.
Yeah.
Or these can even introduce you to that world.
Yeah, if you watch the John Wick world, or you're a fan or a deep fan, you can see the Easter eggs and where things are headed, basically, right? But if you have no relation to it, you can watch it fresh and not have any issue or bump at all, because it truly is kind of an origin story. And the interesting thing about doing that is you can reverse engineer from the John Wick movies, and it's placed in the 70s, so that gives you a whole other vibe of playfulness with the music and whatnot.
Yeah, could you talk about the format? Because I felt like I was just watching 3 films.
That's what they wanted, and it's interesting, and that's part of the thing that excited me about it. Was in traditional TV, you have many directors for 10 episodes, and there's no prep time. This one, there's prep time between each episode. They're 90 minutes long. I do 1 and 3. This very experienced director, Charlotte Branston, did 2. And you just have the time for quality, basically, and that's partly what attracted me to it. Because in TV, they just go into the next episode the next week with a new director, and it just keeps going, and you can feel it. And TV lends itself more to writing, and not kind of a cinematic take. So this setup was great for giving it a fighting chance for a cinematic take.
Yeah, I don't even know how to say this, because I don't want to come off like kids. It's a TV show, but John Wick makes killing look very artful and smooth and fun. Your characters, even in the film, could you just walk out viewers through how do you shoot those scenes? How do you choreograph that? It's
Well, the John Wick people, Chad Stahelski is the director of those films, and David Leitch is his partner, they co-directed the first John Wick. They own a company called 8711, which is a stunt group, and it's a think tank of stuntmen that create all these spectacular fight and action scenes for other movies, even before they did John Wick. So we used the same company. All the stunt guys that were working with us worked on all the John Wick movies. Chad Stahelski, anointed and blessed Larnell Stovall, who's our action director, fight coordinator, and they're very creative about using the room. So you have the DNA because we're using the exact same guys. Like, I'm not necessarily an action director, even though some people will watch Dead Presidents and think my brother and I are action guys.
Right.
And some people saw Menace and think that Hollywood was offering us action movies after that. It's like, no, we were reflecting real life.
Absolutely.
And in the Wick thing, which you're alluding to a little bit, it's like having fun with violence. When you see it stylized, kind of parallel universe, it's a subculture of assassins, and it's more winking and nodding at the audience. So
Right.
throwback John Woo type stuff, you know.
But it's good. It's funny because you know, even when you look at it, then you think about reality. And like, imagine me and you walking into a bar and it's like 40 guys with guns and we like take them out. Like, I'm grabbing a gun and I'm switching it around.
Yeah, that's
and
when
taking
you know.
And then I'm like kicking your ankle and shit.
That's when you know it's fantasy. It's kind of fantasy. Like, what are the chances you're gonna walk in and shoot up a whole club? You know, in some of those movies, he's having a battle with a guy and people are still dancing. You know. It's like, they just clear out.
Yeah, a lot of the projects that you just worked on in the past, like you already said, you dealt with heavy issues. Even Good Lord Bird, you know, and which is a parody on a slave and slavery. And,
Yeah, a satirical take on
the
history.
only slave that wanted to remain a slave because he figured out how to work the system, Little Onion, right?
Yeah,
but again, you're getting at those deep issues. How do you feel like the Continental fits in with your whole body of work in general?
I think it was. I don't know. Like that's actually a good question. You gotta make me pause. You gotta make me do one of those. I think it's a reaction, like I said earlier, to the earlier work. Mm-hmm. And the reaction is, I don't want to be, and I'm sure you're the same way. The thing about being in America is you're constantly reminded, if you're a minority, in the press, the way you get treated, you're constantly reminded of it. And I just don't want to be reminded of it for one project. Let me just go in and be a man. Mm-hmm. And let me have fun and let the audience have fun. And I think because of the COVID thing and the climate and politics and the divided nature of what's going on nowadays, people just want to check out. You know, we'll get back, mm-hmm. get back to doing some serious stuff. And I do enjoy like portraying real life issues realistically, especially when it comes to violence. That was one thing my brother and I were always about on those first movies. It's like, if you're gonna have somebody get shot in your movie, show the audience really what happens to the victim.
Right.
Or, you know, sometimes they pee on themselves. Sometimes they're shaking, and don't make it look pretty. You know, and then you know there's a side of all of us that love the Hong Kong action.
Absolutely.
You know, back in the '90s, love John Woo and kind of the hyper stylized violence, which John Wick is very much influenced
90s,
by.
maybe even the 80s.
He started definitely in the '80s, but
Yeah.
Hard Boiled and The Killer. And what was the other one that were just, you know, remember the opening of Hard Boiled?
When I grew up, every Saturday, Black Belt Theater came on at like 3 o'clock.
That's what I'm talking about.
You know, Black
Yeah.
Belt Theater, like, you know.
They even had the John Saxon one. He hosted something like that, and they'd show all the Bruce Lee movies, not necessarily the Bruce Lee movies. You remember Bruce? You ever grow up on Bruce Lee? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's about like, depending on the project, it's how do you treat. If the question is how do you treat violence?
Right.
There's two responsible ways. One is very realistically, and one is to let the audience know you're winking, nodding, and this is not to be taken seriously. You know, it's there for fun. And then we're in a culture where things get perceived a certain way.
Right.
Whereas in Japan, it's not perceived the same way. Or in Korea, when you look at hardcore Korean movies, like they don't have a violent society, but they can make a violent movie and know that it's a movie.
So you've been at this since you were 12.
Yeah. Again, you're reminding me again how old I am.
Can you speak to that? Because it's like you had it figured out. Like you kind of had it figured out before, you know, puberty.
Like we didn't know then, because back then, you know, if you're given a home video camera, even if you were given it, you're gonna go shoot with your friends. And subconsciously in your mind, you're never thinking, I'm gonna be a director, because you never see anybody that looks like you that's a director.
Right.
And then later, I think we were 14, 15, 16, we saw Spike, and then we saw Robert Townsend's Hollywood Shuffle, which we loved. Like, I'm in love with that movie, right? And also subconsciously, you're gonna go, oh my God, I see someone like me. And then that's when it started to click. Even though we had the camera at 12, we were just taking it as a hobby, having fun, and imitating Bruce Lee, Rambo, We even did a Johnny Carson at Tonight Show. Me and my brother would set up like an interview situation, right? We played with our G.I. Joes, set them on fire. But we never imagined that we would have a career in it. And God bless my mother, because she was like, here's the camera.
Right. Is it easier, do you prefer, or are there going to be any more Hughes Brothers collaborations?
There could be. I can perceive. I can see he producing me or me producing him, because we have two different opinions on directing.
Right.
We agree on a lot about directing, but he believes it should be a one-person job. I'm into partnerships. I love the Coen brothers. I love the anonymity of the partnership for me, because my personality is an introvert. He's an extrovert. So that's what worked in that system. He was the mouthpiece for us.
So for him, it's easier. For him, it's easier to work alone, and you prefer to.
I preferred it more for anonymity. Like, I don't want the attention. I understand his theory of like one captain that everybody looks at, because I've done it, and it is a different experience. It feels great, but I don't like it because I'm a twin. I'm just inherently built for a partnership, And he inherently, because he comes from a performing background, my brother. He's more like an actor. He was on stage at 16 doing comedy, saying he was 18. He had a talk show at our high school that was like a Donahue talk show. So he is a performer.
Yeah, I forgot all about Donahue.
Sally, Jesse, Raphael, Oprah, whoever you want, but he has a performer's soul. So a performer, a one-man performer too. So he's wired differently. My wiring is, I like to make it. I can do it in a partnership. And by the way, we both, even though we don't work together directly now, we find partners, because it's inherently, first nature to us to do
It's
that.
a big collaborative business.
Yeah, but like on this project, the showrunner and writer, Kirk Ward, this big 6'3" white dude with a mohawk, I bonded with him right away, because I'm built for a partnership.
Right.
He's the writer, he's the showrunner, I'm the filmmaker, and it's a natural thing for me. My brother bonded on Dear Mama with his editor, Lasse, and before that with Doug Prey, who did American Pimp for us. So we're built for partnerships.
What's next for you?
I'll go home. I don't know. I think there is a dream project. I won't mention the name, and
Right.
It was based off of an Iceberg Slim book.
Okay.
And you know Iceberg Slim, right?
I know more about Iceberg Slim than any one person should.
And it's not the book that everybody would think it is.
Where? Okay.
But it's a book that deals with it's basically.
Could I guess, or you don't want me to guess?
You can guess.
Black Widow?
Nope.
Oh shit. Okay.
So I'll give you the trigger word.
Trick baby. White folks.
Because we
My man.
remember
White folks.
did you ever see the blaxploitation movie?
Yeah, but the audio was so bad that I didn't really.
Oh, you
like,
can get it now. It's
Word.
You can rent it now. It's
Okay.
Online, but
Is it like on okay? So I can
it's
rent it
on. I
online.
forgot what platform it's on.
It
But
needs to be redone.
yeah, but it was actually well made for the time. The thing I love about it, it's like Good Lord Bird in a way. If you really look at it and you make it right, it's a satire on America.
Yeah.
Race, religion, politics, gender identity, all kinds of stuff. And it's about the American dream really being the American scheme.
Right.
So it's a beautiful story in a partnership, and a white passing.
No, I would love that. I would
And
love
it's
that.
just
I would
like,
love that.
you
That
know.
would be fire.
Yeah, I want to do that. I shouldn't have said it, but it's out there now. So
Tell everyone where they can watch the Continental.
the Continental premieres Friday, September 22nd. I believe the second episode is 29th. The third episode is October 6th. And you have to go on this ride because you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
By the time you get to the third one, it's just off the rails.
Yeah, it's fire. Congratulations and
Thank you, man.
Thank you.